Hello, my name is Dennis, and welcome to my trailer park white trash mobile home kitchen. I really do live in a mobile home, in a trailer park, and this is my kitchen. What I am going to attempt today, this is my second attempt because I made this once and I went and put it in the refrigerator after it was all done. It was beautiful and I lost control of it and splat, it crashed to the floor, was ruined. So I have to make it again, which is okay because the first time I didn't like the recipe. So what this is chocolate mascarpone pie. I was in a restaurant waiting in the lobby for some friends to show up. We were all having lunch together and there was a restaurant trade journal. It's a magazine that they have just for restaurants. And there was a recipe in there for chocolate mascarpone pie, along with a bunch of other things that I also want to make. I like to make my own mascarpone, which you'll have to for this recipe because otherwise the price would be, well, we'll get into that in a moment. So I made this once already, but the filling only came halfway up the pie shell. I want a big full pie. But the thing with mascarpone is it's like, there's only two things in it, fat and saturated fat. So I told a friend, don't leave town. You're taking this, go, have fun, may life treat you well. I don't want the calories in the house. So that's what I'm doing today, and then I'll call him when it's done, if it doesn't end up on the floor again. Let's get into the ingredients I'm going to be using for making my chocolate mascarpone pie. I have here roughly 1/2 tablespoon of butter. I'm going to be using that for greasing the tart tin. I'm actually going to line my tart tin with parchment paper, but grease it well, especially if it's a non-stick tin. And then I have 2.5 cups, or roughly 10 ounces, 284 chocolate cookie crumbs. You need about 25 of these chocolate cookies. These are sandwich cookies with the cream inside chocolate, like Oreos, things like that. And then use 3.5 tablespoons of sugar, or use all the creamy filling from inside the these cookies. I think that works best. But if you're using cookies, you can use graham crackers, ginger snaps that don't have a creamy filling. Then add 3.5 tablespoons of sugar. And then I have 1/2 cup of melted butter here. Not hot, just melted. This actually has to be softened a little bit. And then for my filling, believe it or not, I have over 2 pounds of mascarpone here that I made myself. I made this myself because to buy this is cost prohibitive. $9 for an 8-ounce tub. What's that, $36 just for the mascarpone? A 1/2 gallon of cream at the warehouse store cost me $5.69, and I only used 3 pints from it. I still have a pint left over. I'll be using that for whipped cream later on. So that was, what, $4.25 to make 2 pounds of mascarpone. And then you need 12 to 14 ounces of semi-sweet chocolate. The most cost-efficient method is to buy the little morsels. This is 12 ounces. I have a candy bar here of dark chocolate, 4 ounces. I only need a little bit of this for garnish, so I may be adding half this candy bar to my chocolate to bring it up to 14 ounces. And then I'm going to be using 1/2 teaspoon of almond extract, or hazelnut if you'd like, anything that you'd like as far as flavoring. I think almond is good in this, but hazelnut would certainly be good as well. And then I have roughly 1/2 cup of white chocolate here. These are white chocolate morsels. I'm going to show you how I'm going to use these to garnish the top. I'm going to do something special, but you could, if you wanted to, just put these little morsels on top of the pie. That would work very well. And as I mentioned, I'll be also adding some whipped cream to this later on when I serve the pie. So those are the ingredients I'm using for my chocolate mascarpone pie. I have here a sheet of parchment paper, and then underneath this I have this sheet of paper on which I drew basically one leaf on the computer and then copied and pasted till I filled that sheet of paper up so I'd have the same size. And what I'm going to be doing is using some white chocolate inside of a piping bag, and I'm going to create little leaves here and then store them in the refrigerator to chill up. And then later on, I'm going to put those on top of my pie when I'm done, and it'll make it look really pretty. So to get started here, I have some boiling water on the stove. Going to pour my white chocolate into my bag and put this in a plastic bag that's heat proof, and I can just plunge this in the boiling water, and that will soften my chocolate, and I can use that then to pipe onto my design here. Okay, let me show you how I'm going to do this. I'm going to squeeze my chocolate out onto my pattern here. So there's my outline, and then just kind of working back and forth to kind of make the vein design of the leaf. There are tips for making leaves. Those of you who are used to cake decorating, you can use one of those tips to do this if you want. Make white chocolate leaves. I don't do cake decorating, so basically this is how I'm going to do it. One more. Okay, and I have like at least 30 of these to do. I'm going to fill this sheet up and then put it in the refrigerator. So let me finish this and then I'll move on to my next step. So there are my leaves. What did I get? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 36. I'm going to put these in the refrigerator to harden up. I only need 30 for my pie, so I'll choose the best looking 30 to garnish the top. So the next step now is to start making my crust. My next step here is to start grinding up my chocolate sandwich cookies. I'm going to put 25 of them in there. Okay, there's 25. And I'm going to grind this up a bit first before I put my butter in there. But as I always do, put a little barrier over the top so that I don't get my lid dirty. One less thing to wash. And I find that these grind better if I pulse them rather than just turn it on, because the cookie solids will kind of move up to the top and won't get down to the blades. So I'm just going to pulse these. Okay, that looks good so far. And again, that's the cookies with the cream filling in there so that I don't have to add any sugar. And now here goes my half cup of butter. And this is going to look like gooey coffee grinds when it's done. One of these days I want to try putting an egg white or two in there to see how that changes the consistency of my crumb crust. Sometimes I feel as though it would benefit if it had a binder, such as an egg white. Okay, same thing, I'm going to just pulse this. All right, and then I just want to scrape the sides down. One time. Make sure that all my butter is in there. Looks good. And that should be fine. So, as I mentioned, that'll look like a wet, sticky, dark French roast coffee ground mess. And I can see a little bit of butter in the very bottom. I'm going to move this to a bowl and just mix this up finally to make sure that that butter is distributed evenly. I lined my tart tin or tart pan with parchment paper. I got a little bit of butter here in this bowl, and I'm just going to kind of butter around the edges. To make sure that it won't stick. I can't remember whether I said that some recipes, I did some research on crumb pastry shells. Some recipes said to, if I'm repeating myself, it's because I'm 60 years old and I'm entitled. Some recipes say to refrigerate the crust, some say to bake it for 10 minutes, 375 or 325. Some say do either. I don't know. So there it is. That's, wipe my hands here. That's prepped. And then this is always a fun mess. And I'm using, by the way, an 11-inch tart pan here. If you have a 9-inch, just adjust the contents accordingly. Just going to get this kind of stirred around, broken around. Get it distributed. And then get the fingers in there. And start patting this down. And then work it to the edge. Kind of hold your finger on the edge so that it doesn't rise up too high. But pack it along the edge so that you have a side crust. Just about there. This is the last section. Okay, just going to rinse my hand here and then pop this in the oven. Again, I heated my oven to 325 degrees. I'm going to bake this for 10 minutes. I've set up a pan here on the stove with some water boiling in it. And then carefully putting another pan inside. Here's my chocolate. I did add that piece of chocolate bar. And there's my nuggets. I'm going to turn my heat down to medium here. I'm going to use this warmth to melt my chocolate. You have to be careful when you melt chocolate that you don't overheat it. Using a double boiler like this, the water can't get above 212 degrees Fahrenheit or 100 degrees centigrade. So that gives you a lower high temperature, which will protect your chocolate and keep things from going south, basically. All right, so there's my chocolate. Just gonna stir that and make sure there are no solid chunks in there. Nice and creamy melted. That looks good. So I can take that off the heat, and I'm ready to start mixing my filling. Here's the fun part, mixing the filling. I put all of that mascarpone in there, a good pound and a half. There's all that melted chocolate in there, and then I put in a half a teaspoon of almond extract. And then slow process of getting this all mixed up and getting it distributed evenly. You want to try to eliminate all white streaks in this. And by the way, this filling now, the only sweetness that's in this is from the candy, the chocolate. I did not add any sugar. So when you're doing this, mix your filling. And if you think it needs to be sweeter, feel free to add sugar. One of these days I want to make this and only partially mix it so that I have that marble effect. The only thing that might affect is when it's refrigerated, the darker areas are going to be the chocolate and they're going to be more solid, whereas the mascarpone will be soft even when refrigerated. Mascarpone, every once in a while I call it mascarpone because I took an Italian cooking class with an Italian chef who studied in a culinary school in Italy, and nonetheless she pronounced it mascarpone. Well, she pronounced it mascarpone, as if the R was in the first syllable. It's in the second syllable. After a while, I dropped that class because I just felt as though she didn't know what she was doing for being a chef. There it is. There's my filling. I've got to taste that. My red handle tasting spoon. Once this has been in my mouth, the red handle tells me it does not go back into the bowl. Very subtle sweetness. I can taste the chocolate. The almond extract is barely there. I think that is a good consistency. That's a good mixture, so we're going to go with that. All right, let's see if I planned this right. This is my pie shell. I took it out of the oven. It baked for 10 minutes. I'm not going to put all this in there right away. I'm going to make sure I have room for it all. I baked this for 10 minutes. And then I refrigerated it while I was preparing this filling. I need a knife. I have an offset spatula that I'm going to be using to smooth this filling out. But I want to get it distributed first. Because if I have too much, I'm not going to overfill my pie just so that I can use it all. I'm pushing it up to the edges of my crust here. I put this on a sheet of parchment paper so I wouldn't scratch my baking sheet, because that baking sheet's got a nice non-stick coating in it. I don't want to scratch it. All right, I think that's enough filling. I don't have that much left over. So there's a little bit left over in this bowl. That's for nibbles. And let me get out my spatula and I'll smooth that out, and then we'll decorate the top. This always takes a while to get this really beautifully smooth. And it's okay if it's a little bit high in the center, which this probably will be, but that's all right. A little bit over full in that one section there. So I'm going to push that to the middle. Okay, that's close enough. Now I'm ready to start decorating this. Okay, here's one of my tricks. I know that I want to get 10 equal sized servings out of that pie. So on my computer, on 2 pieces of paper, these are actually glued together, I made a circle and I did it, what's 10 divided into 360, 36 degrees. So I did 36-degree arcs of angle all the way around. And now when I decorate my pie, you can barely see the lines, but they are there. I'll have those lines to work with as far as putting my decorations on the top. Here are my leaves from the refrigerator. And what I'm going to do is, using my lines, I'm going to put 2 leaves kind of close together to form a piece, and then one more to make like a triangle. So that every piece, when it's cut, will have 3 white chocolate leaves on it. Last section right here. All right. And then I have about, what is that, 2, 4, 6 pieces left over for nibbles. So there it is. That's ready now to go into the refrigerator. I put this on a baking sheet, so this time hopefully I won't lose control of it and it'll end up on the floor like it did last time. If you watch through the end of the credits, I will try to put the clip at the end as an outtake of the pie on the floor. If I remember correctly, I did video that mess on the floor. Chocolate mascarpone pie. So here is my pie. I'm going to see if I can do this without a disaster. This has been sitting in the refrigerator now for quite some time. It's 5 o'clock right now. I finished this about 4 o'clock. I have a bowl set up. Again, this is a 2-piece. There that one goes. Okay. And now that worked. Little crumb there. And there is my pie. Now I gotta confess something. I don't know how well you can see this on there. I made this little piece of curved plastic. One thing I don't like about these fluted pans is that just a lot more space around the edges, a lot more surface area for the crust to stick to. So I made this little curved piece so that it's just the right shape to go between the crust and the pie pan, and I went all the way around and loosened it all the way around so that I could get this to come up free. So now the last step here is to cut a slice of this, garnish it with some whipped cream and some shaved chocolate, and then see how good it tastes. Okay, let's see if I can do this. I'm really nervous about this. I have some of chocolate here and one of those microplane graters, so I'm gonna put a light dusting of grated chocolate on that plate. And then I'm gonna slice a bit of my pie here. It's got a nice firmness to it. Oh, that looks beautiful. Look at that. A little bit of an edge there from the knife. And then I have some whipped cream. I think it's prettier that way. This is lightly whipped cream, not stiff peaks. And then some more chocolate on my whipped cream. Okay, that deserves a close-up. Hold on a second. Look at it. There it is. I mean, isn't that beautiful? Chocolate mascarpone pie garnished with some fresh whipped cream and then dusted lightly with dark chocolate, shaved with a microplane grater. Last step is to see how good this tastes. Oh, I can't wait. Okay, I am dying to taste this thing. I've already cut into it because I just couldn't resist. This is double pleasure because, as I told you, the last one I made flipped out of my hands and landed plop on the floor. I never got to taste it, so I had to make this a second time just so I could enjoy this moment. Oh, this looks so good. Not overly sweet, a little bit of sweetness, the way I like it. A little bit of chocolate in my throat. It's that good. Okay, you gotta make this chocolate mascarpone pie with some extra whipped cream on the side. Pinch, pinch, pinch. I'm awake. I haven't died and gone to heaven. All right, excuse me. I gotta go enjoy my dessert. Sometimes things do go horribly wrong. There's the chocolate mascarpone pie. I lost control of it when I was putting it in the refrigerator. Oh well, tomorrow's another day.